Hello and welcome everybody to another Thursday night edition of Aquaholics Anonymous. I appreciate you all being here. I know that the background is a little bit different than what you all are used to. Still in the process of moving this fish room around, as you can see by this empty wall. How could we have an empty wall? That's not good. We got to put a fish tank there. So I kind of threw together my studio, if you will, earlier today. So it'll be probably different next week when you see it, but hopefully all goes well and nothing falls apart. I think I stacked all the books just right for the monitors to sit where they need to be at. But I think audio and video good. Perfect. All right. So tonight we are going to discuss heaters. Now there are a couple of things that brought this on. One of them is what's being called #HeaterGate on another platform. And basically it's been this huge blowout between creators. And it's really sad because it's gotten semi-hostile about whether you do or don't need a heater. And you're an idiot if you don't think what I think and, you know, that kind of stuff. So I've been thinking about that. And then Corey, in his most recent live stream with Co-op, had a question about what is the, I guess, most overlooked thing in the hobby. I forget exactly how it was phrased, but temperature was what he was talking about and what his thought was. And of course, he's got a wonderful video. What was the name of it? I have it. The Truth About Aquarium Heaters. And I would recommend you check that out at some point, not right now, because you're going to hang out with us, right? We're going to have some fun. But, you know, Ed and I have talked heaters before. There's a good bit of disagreement on the thought process behind temperature in general and heaters and heater placement and things of that nature. So tonight, our hot topic, if you will, pun intended, is aquarium heaters. Do you need one? And if so, you know, how should you go about setting one up? And this is my opinion from experience. I don't claim to be an expert on any of these things. I'm not in the manufacturing business of aquarium heaters, so I couldn't tell you in depth specifically all the parts and pieces and things. And I don't even know that we'll get into brand specifics necessarily in terms of recommendations when we get to that part on talking heaters. But I feel like before we can even discuss heaters, we should talk about temperatures and specifically our fish, you know, fish in the hobby. And I feel like we should take a much more broader look than oftentimes I feel like we do. I feel like a lot of times we just look at, this is what, you know, the website said or the Google page said or the book said in terms of what the temperature recommendation is. So that's what it must be. What I like to look at, Zen says, James, you're so tiny. Yeah, it's the camera's further away. We're getting more shots of aquariums. We're going to play with all that stuff, except this is just temporary, but we'll see how it goes. But let's, you know, I like to look at fish in nature because you'll hear people talk sometimes about, oh, they can't handle, you know, any temperature swings. Your temperature needs to stay the same. You know, it should be exactly 76 degrees all the time. And I don't personally agree with that. I'm not hitting on anybody that says that, but that's just not my personal thoughts and philosophy on it. If you look at nature, you've got a lot of fluctuations in nature. You've got seasonal fluctuations, you know, your wintertime, summertime, in between on both. You've also got locational changes. And what I mean by that is not so much, you know, looking at North America and South America, but a fish might migrate or it might swim to different parts of a river. You know, it might be further upstream and it might come downstream and get closer towards another inlet that's bringing in a different temperature of water. You know, it might have cooler mountain water coming into a river in one part and warmer water in other parts. I do see the super chats and the highlighted questions. I will definitely get to those, and I appreciate you all being here. But I'm going to burn through this real quick, and then we can get into some heated discussion, right? But, you know, location changes. That fish, you know, they swim around. They a lot of times have a home. But, you know, fish can change location. They go to different parts of rivers. And even in a smaller area of that river, you know, if you've ever been swimming in a lake or a deep river, you know, the further down you go, the cooler the water gets, you know, and even just a matter of feet, you know, you go down further and that temperature can change drastically, and you get into some cool spots, the further down you go. So fish are a lot more adaptable, in my opinion, to temperature fluctuation. Typically, deem them fit to be. You compare that to our indoor living situation as humans. We have a particular comfort zone. It's got some fluctuation to it, typically speaking, wintertime versus summertime. You have your heater on versus your air conditioner, depending upon where you live. If it's super cold all the time, you might run heat constantly, so you may stay a little bit closer to the exact same heat throughout the year. But there's still some fluctuations in the home, typically speaking. And even just to the micro point, kind of like your cool spots, you open a door, temperature outside is probably different than what it is inside. It lets in that cold air or that warm air, and your house makes an adjustment. That thermostat goes, we just let in some cold air, we need to heat it back up, or vice versa, depending upon what your temperature is and how you've got things set. So taking those things into account, let's dive deeper, if you will, in terms of how fish respond to temperature. For those of you that have been here before, as most of you all have, you've heard Ed and I discuss warmer temperatures in terms of more breeding. Some of the other things that come with warmer water are also going to be a faster metabolism and, oftentimes more aggression. If nothing else, those fish are going to be more active. And when you get into cooler temperatures, your fish generally tend to be more relaxed. Oftentimes you'll see breeding slow down or completely stop depending upon the fish and the temperature. And also typically less aggression in the cooler temperatures. So keeping those things in mind, and this was something that Corey spoke to quite well, of course, because he's Corey. Even Corey mentioned if you've got fish living in your house on more of a natural cycle, warmer months, they're ramping up their breeding, they're doing their thing. It starts to get into the cooler months, they kind of slow down on the breeding. They start storing up that food, they get nice and fat and healthy, and then they get ready for those warmer months again where they're going to start reproducing. And that can lead to a much better, in my opinion, longer life cycle for your fish versus keeping them ramped up at high temperatures. So those are just some things to keep in mind in terms of heaters. Before we even actually get to heaters, things to take into account when you're looking at, do I even need a heater? So let's look at some other factors. Before I stick a heater in, some things to take into account. These are all things that are going to have to do with the temperature of your tank. Do you have a light on it? Typically, we have a light on it. How much heat is coming off of that light? And this is something that I had to think about this because Ed's setting up a saltwater tank, as a lot of you know who have been watching our Saltwater Saturday series. Well, 12, 15 years ago, most people didn't put heaters in their saltwater tank. It was quite the opposite. So Ed said, well, I need to get a heater for my saltwater tank. And I was like, no, you don't. That's crazy. And he said, well, yeah, I need the temperature up to this. And we were in a fish store, and I walked around, and I'm like, that would have been blasphemy, 15 years ago, to put a heater in a saltwater tank. And I'm like, what? Why? What's the different process here? Because I've been out of saltwater for about that long. And it occurred to me, the lights back then, we didn't really have, or they weren't as openly available. Didn't have access to the LEDs, at least not at cheap cost like we do now. Most people were running metal halides, fluorescent tubes, a lot of lights that had a lot of heat, especially if you got into the metal halides. Those things put off a lot of heat, enough to burn you, in fact, if you get close to them. And that brought up the temperature in our tanks, this is talking reef tanks, significantly, to the point where most people were actually running chillers on their reef tanks. And so that's where I finally clicked in. I was like, you know what, Ed, it's the lights. We had these really hot lights 15 years ago that were heating our tanks up. And so everybody was having to run a chiller on their tank to bring it down. That makes perfect sense now. These being so widely used and available at a good price, reasonable prices, that now people, you have to use a heater to bring the temp up because you don't have that massive heat source coming from these big industrial type lights over your reef tank. The camera froze? There we go. Now I'm back. Let's see. So I thought that was funny, the way that the hobby progressed there and how much lighting played a factor in that. Another thing that affects the temperature of your aquarium is going to be your filter oftentimes. Now, not necessarily with sponge filters. I'm pointing to one like you all can see it off the screen here. But if you've got a hang-on back filter or a canister filter, and also power heads, essentially what you have there is a heater that is stuck on, so to speak. It's constantly running. So if you've got 15 watts on the motor on your hang-on back, you've got a 15-watt heater that is constantly heating your tank. Same with power heads, and when you get into bigger canisters, I think like the Fluvels, the FX6s, I think, which you've got one, are about 50 watts. So that's a 50-watt heater that you've got running nonstop. You throw a couple of those on a tank, as a lot of people do, and then you've got 100, 150 watts of constant heat source. And it's constantly on. It's adding to that temperature increase in your tank. Another thing to keep in mind, and I know a lot of us, we talk about tops for evaporation. And generally we're talking about that referencing, not having to top our tank off and things of that nature. But that also plays a big role in your tank temperature, potentially. If you've got no top on a tank and the AC is just blasting on that thing, significantly, sorry, I got that from John. I can't talk now. Thanks, KG. I'm just kidding. It's going to significantly affect the temperature coming down with that air conditioner blowing on it. Same thing, evaporation. Pause. Words are hard. Learn to speak. There we go. Evaporation is a cooling method. A lot of times when tanks get hot, or you'll hear, in a power outage situation or something bad happens, putting a fan across the top of a tank to cool that tank down. And that was also a popular thing, or a common thing, with the reef lights 15 years ago. You would have people that would run a fan that would help push some of that heat that's coming down from the light towards the water away from the water, but it would also cause cooling due to the evaporation from that fan blowing across there. So those are all things to keep in mind, to factor in before we even get to, do we need a heater? Look at how much heat am I putting into, from a hang-on back filter, a canister filter, how much heat am I adding to that? How many watts from a light? Power heads, which I know a lot of people don't run power heads in freshwater. I run them in a lot of my bigger tanks. And then, do you have a top? What effect is that having on it? Taking all those things into account and consideration. Now we can talk about heaters and different types of heaters, and then we'll get into heater placement. So I've got a whole bunch of heaters, but here's just a handful that we've got. And Ed's got a couple as well. I know we've both got one of these. These are the Eheims. Now, these are a good heater. And I know John at KG Tropicals mentioned he's got the newer version of these that they just got in for their website, keepfishkeeping.com. Hashtag not sponsored, not a, what's the word I'm looking for here? Sponsored? I mentioned him, yeah, not a sponsor, but affiliate, whatever.
Oh.
I mentioned him because he's a cool guy, and I appreciate what he does. But,
yeah, we don't have any affiliates. We just like everybody.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Hashtag Tennessee Fish Mafia. We just like everybody.
Well, but you know what? If you're a jerk, we don't like you.
Yeah, if you're a jerk, we don't like you. How about that? Yeah, these are one of the hobby standards, if you will, or have been for a very long time. And they have this little adjustment feature here because heaters are not perfectly accurate. So you can kind of adjust. You could go, oh, well, I set it to 76, but the temperature is really reading 75, so I can make this micro adjustment with this little thing. We're not going to talk about that too much, but a very popular heater, very commonly used. Then I've got just kind of another standard, different brand. I've probably got 7 or 8 different brands. We're not going to look at them all. But here's another one that's got some protection down at the end there, and then it's got the built-in numbers. Let's see if that'll... probably not going to show up because it's in the glass, but it's got the numbers right there, and you twist this and you adjust it where you want it. These all have a built-in thermostat, and we're going to talk more about thermostats here in a little bit. So those two both have adjustable thermostats. Now here's one that does not have an adjustable thermostat. This is a preset heater, and I do like these for smaller tanks. This one here, there's no adjustment to it. You simply put it in the water, and it's in there, and it does its job. And those will typically tell you on the box the temperature that they're going to bring that water to for a certain size tank. Now my chair's sinking down. I can feel myself lowering. And then I've got one of these, which you really don't see very often, but I picked up somewhere. I don't even remember. And most people are going to go, oh, that's a reptile pad. This one actually is not.
Is that a bowl?
It is just a little Aquarium heat pad. I don't know if it'll actually show up on the camera or not. Probably not, but it's even got on there. Oh, it's thinking about it. Minimum water level. So you all know that is a submersible heater. That's not one of those under tank pads. And it even mentions on here, do not run dry. But lots of different types of heaters. So
I've got a super little square one.
Yeah.
For my betta tank that I got at Aquatic Aesthetics. Rob's here, and it's a preset. It always stays at 77, and it's been working great for me. I just wanted to throw out these preset ones that you were just talking about.
Yeah,
these are kind of a Walmart staple. They got them at all the Walmarts. They got them at Petco, PetSmart, but I bought all of them out in Chattanooga area because the Walmart will match their prices from their website. And a couple of years ago, they were $1.99 on their website. And they're normally like $18.99, which is a little too expensive if you ask me for them. But for $2, I literally went to every single Walmart in the Chattanooga area, and each one had like 3 to 4. I bought them all. I bought about 25 of these things. And they work great. I use them now in my ponds. In October, I put them on a rope, and I put like 4 of them, and then I just like a pole, and I hang them in the water just to keep it warm at night, and then I cover it up. I just wanted to throw that out there though, because sometimes you find some great deals on the preset stuff.
Absolutely. So, and then there are some variants. I mean, these are all none of these are digital that I've shown. I think Ed's got a digital one there. They're, of course, coming out with digital ones that'll have, little digital readout there of your temperature. And even some of them have a low flow warning, which we're going to talk about that some more here in a minute. And then you also have, where these are glass, you have this titanium coating on a lot of them now to help make them break proof, because that's one of the issues you have with heaters. A lot of times is this glass breaking. And then when you've got electricity and water is always a fun combination, right? But 2, you've also got, physical shards of glass in there, and that can lead to all sorts of potential issues, injuries, and problems. I see Ed reading the back of the box.
Yep. I got this for my saltwater tank. Rob at Aquatic Aesthetics told me to get one that has a timer that's outside the box, and my fish room runs like 80 at the ceiling, 75 on the ground. So it's going to be about at 77 degrees. And Rob was recommending that I keep it at 80. And other people said that too, even when I told James, he was telling that story. And so he said, you ought to get a good digital saltwater heater. And so I got this one for that.
Highly recommend that. Absolutely.
I got this one at Aquatic Marine at James's fish store.
You did. I don't have my cup in here. I started to get my Aquatic Marine cup, but I don't have it on the desk right now.
Yep.
That's going to be another great thing about this. I'm going to segue away for a second. The new setup I'm going to have on my actual big desk. So it's going to be kind of like Chattanooga Ed, where I can just pull all the things out I'll have available right here. So that's going to be fun, having all the props at hand. So I look forward to that. Fun. I know I certainly do. So we've got it covered. Heater basics, if you will, some different types of heaters. Again, I'm not really going into brand. My only personal recommendation from experience is don't buy the generic Amazon heaters. There are a lot of things I'll go to Amazon for. Heaters is not one of them. If you could get a good name brand one, that's different. But I have found that the generic Amazon heaters tend to be the worst of all the heaters available. Other than that, all your standard name brands, if you will, are all pretty much the same, give or take, in my experience. And I've got This is just the heaters that I pulled out that I'm not using currently. I've got a lot of heaters.
Oops. I think we lost your volume, James.
Ed's trying to silence me. You got it back?
Yep.
Okay.
You're back.
I don't know what happened there. Being wonky, and I kind of set all this up haphazardly, if you will, trying to get it all ready for tonight. Of course, everything tests well and good, but once you get into live, it totally changes.
Everybody. Welcome to
Oh, that's
Night Stream.
Bob Steamfont video just started in the background. Sorry.
Well, hello, everybody.
Yeah, our special guest from the cell phone, Bob Steamfont. All right. Anyway, I digress. I think we've got all of the goofiness out of the way. Maybe not goofiness, but hopefully the craziness. So let's talk about installation. We've decided, okay, I've looked at all these factors. I've looked at what my fish need. I looked at what I'm providing, what's going on with my tank. Yes, I need to put a heater in. A couple different things to talk about would be wattage. The typical recommendation in the hobby is, okay, there we go. Typical recommendation in the hobby is 3 to 5 watts per gallon. And that varies depending upon what manufacturer you look at. You can pick up one brand and look at the box and it says 5. You can pick up another brand and look at the box, it says 3. You can look and you'll find recommendations for, tanks up to this size use 5 watts and tanks over it use 3 watts per gallon. So 3 to 5 is kind of the status quo or the standard recommendation, 3 to 5 watts per gallon. That being said, if you need 200 watts, I'm a fan of this method, as I know quite a few people are. I would definitely recommend using 2 100-watt heaters versus 1 200-watt heater, and there are a lot of reasons for that. One is the redundancy. So if one of them goes out, stops working, you have a second heater there to kind of take its place and try and keep pace until you notice it. If one sticks on, you're using a smaller heater, so it's going to heat up the water less quickly than that 200-watt would if it had stuck on in your tank. And there are a lot of other things that factor into that. I would say go check out Aquarium Co-op's heater video I mentioned earlier. He goes over things in depth because I'm not here to necessarily go over every little detail about him, but he certainly does a wonderful job. Of course, it's Corey, what do you expect? So that being said, we've got our heater. We're going to put it in the tank. Well, here's another hot topic. Do we put it like this? Do we put it like that? Do we put it like that? How do we put it in the tank? This seems to be one of those things that I find certain people have very, very strong opinions on. I've had people that are like, I see your heater like that or like that, I will call you out because it's not straight up. And vice versa. Why's your heater straight up? Well, there's some things that we can discuss with that. One of them being, if your heater's straight up, and let's see, well, we'll use this one for an example. You can't really see the coils as well. But if your heater's straight up, you've got these heat coils, that heat's rising straight up to that thermostat, you can get a false reading on the temperature. So this thing may not be getting the true reading of your tank because you've got basically a hot spot coming off of there from the heat rising straight into it. If you put it at an angle, you're going to have that heat rising up this way. So it gets a chance to get into the water column, get circulated around, and then your thermostat can get a more accurate reading of the overall temperature in your tank versus just this hot water that's coming straight up the tube there. You can also do it like this. And I've done that in some. Part of how I vary how my heaters go in, they're always at an angle. Sometimes they're horizontal, is how big of water changes do I typically do, and how is that going to impact the heater? Because that's something to keep in mind. You don't want your heater plugged in and coming out of the water while you're doing a water change. So most of my heaters are set at an angle to where I know I don't typically do a water change bigger than that. In an emergency, I would just unplug the heater ahead of time, let it cool off a little bit. But I know that day-to-day maintenance or week-to-week maintenance, I'm not going to have to constantly fool with unplugging the heater, plugging it back in, adding that variable, oh, did I forget a thing? Because let's face it, we're fish keepers, we're busy. Most of us have multiple tank syndrome, if not fish room fever. And there are a lot of things that there are for us to try and remember. So we don't need to add another one, right? So typically I have these angled to where my water level is going to keep this submerged when I'm doing a water change. And I did find, look at, he's got a diagram there. Yours says, I'm trying to look at the picture there. What's the no-no?
Don't lay it on the substrate.
Don't lay it on the, gotcha.
Vertically above the substrate. And don't let it, make sure it's underwater, not out of the water.
So I'm going to share this real quick. This is actually from Aquarium. This is an instruction manual for their fully submersible aquarium heater, various models. So let me find it and share it, because there are a couple things I want to show you all that tie right in. One of those is a drip loop, and we don't really talk about these, but basically when you plug this into the wall, you want to have it to where this is up in the tank above. If water somehow ends up leaking down this, you want it to be able to drip off here. If this is going up to the tank like this and you stretch it out and you've got it plugged in and water runs down this, it's going to run potentially straight over to your electrical outlet. So that's what they're talking about there with the drip loop.
That's never happened to me. Has it happened to you?
It has not, but I always mention it with heaters just because there's going to be one time that I don't. Somebody depends upon watching my video before they put in a heater and it happens. Sure. Even in the Project Piava tank, when I set it up, we talked about the drip loop on that heater. So there are two examples, of course, one being vertical, the other being horizontal. Now, you all probably won't be able to read this, but this file is available on the website or on the internet, so you can pull it up and look at it. What I thought was really interesting is on these specific heater models for this pamphlet here, this user manual, it says on here, safety feature. The heater is equipped with advanced gravity technology. If the heater tilts lower than the heater bottom, the unit will automatically shut off. So something to keep in mind. If you're going to go horizontal, I would at least have a little bit of tilt just in case yours has that built into it. Because if this top part where the thermostat is gets below this part, those are built to where they just don't turn on. So then you've got a heater and go, oh, my heater's broken. It's a brand new heater. It's not working. No, it's just a safety feature and you need to angle it back up. But even in the Aquarium instruction manual, they show both positions as being acceptable. So I just wanted to bring that out there to clear that up. Yeah, and so here we go. It even has the third position, or so they're showing the don't do this in terms of putting it like this, but that's because the bottom is below the top. So they don't want it in the tank like this. You can put it like this. You can put it like that if you want to, but it's not my personal preference. Or you can put it like that, but don't turn it upside down.
Hey, James, there's something I think I was supposed to say at 27 minutes into the stream, and I forgot.
Okay.
Do you remember what you asked me to say at 27 minutes into the stream?
I didn't ask you to say anything at 27 minutes into the stream. I thought this was an Ed thing you were talking about.
Nope, never mind.
Okay.
I'll look at it. I don't want to look at my phone during this stream. Oh, we're live.
All righty. Not that I recall. Is it possible I could have asked you, but I don't recall asking for anything 27 minutes in. I thought that was an Ed thing that you were queuing up to something. All right, nope. So another thing we want to look at, we've got about 30 minutes left, so we're doing good here. Another thing we want to look at is your location in the tank. So we talked about how you want to set it up. You want to get it somewhere that it's going to have sufficient flow, whether that is, if you've got a sponge filter. If I've got a sponge filter and a heater, I always try and put my sponge filter where it is near the flow, or my heater where it's near the flow of that sponge filter, so that water is circulating up and help moving it away and disperse it throughout the tank so that we can get less of a hot spot, more of an overall temperature on there. If you've got hang-on backs or canister filters, your best bet's really to get this thing in as much flow as possible. That way you can disperse as much of the heat as possible throughout the tank, let it circulate, let it get a consistent temperature throughout your tank, and not have that hot spot right around the heater. It's very rare, but I have seen instances where people are like, my fish just hang out by my heater. And it's like in this tank and it's over in a dead zone. And maybe they've got it in a room that's really, really cold. And so their tank is really not getting warm. overall. This section of the tank is staying warm around the heater, but the rest of the tank is kind of cold. I haven't seen that a lot, but once or twice I've seen that because there's no flow in the tank. The more flow you can get across this thing, the better. And that's about the best recommendation I can give you on flow. I know that we want things to typically be hidden, so to speak, but I would definitely encourage you to take that into consideration in terms of getting it in some flow, along with, well, I don't want people to see my ugly heater, right? I mean, that's great. Your heater's hidden and it's behind all these plants or, this decor or whatever, but it's over in this dead spot that's got zero flow going to it. That's not an optimal situation. It might be optimal in terms of the aesthetics of not seeing the heater, but it's not optimal in terms of functionality for the heater and for the welfare of your fish. And then the other thing I mentioned was water change level. If you know that you've got, this big tank with these big meaty Oscars in it, that you do a 50% water change every week, you got to make sure that heater, in my opinion, is down below that water change line. That way you don't have to remember every single week, did I unplug the heater? Did it cool down enough? Okay, I'm done. Did I plug it back in? Okay, next week. Did I unplug the heater? Is it cooled down enough? Okay, did I plug it back in? Did I maybe knock the knob, which this one's not real easy to do. But you've got some that, if you were to reach in there or you hit it, and knock that over to the side when you're trying to maybe push it down, because that's another thing. You say, well, I'm not going to unplug it. I'm just going to shove it further underwater and then I'll raise it back up afterwards. Well, okay, did you bump that big old stubby dial on the top of it when you were doing that and adjust your temperature without realizing it? That's a possibility. Not going to happen all the time, but it definitely can happen. I've seen crazier things happen. Cats cranking up CO2 on tanks and things of that nature. So you never know in this hobby. Another thing to keep in mind, if you're going to use a heater, and not that I'm prioritizing one fish over another, but if you're going to use a heater with expensive fish or in an expensive setup, you've put a lot of money into this thing, you've put a lot of time into this thing, I highly, highly recommend using an external thermostat like an Inkbird. Basically what that does, if you're not familiar with that, is I would put this in the tank, set it for my desired temperature. I would run it into that external thermostat, which this is kind of funny, and I'll discuss why in a second. But you would plug this into that external thermostat, and then you would plug that into the wall. So then you can set that external thermostat and go, okay, I don't want the tank to go above, like we'll say with my zebra plecos, I don't want it to go above 86 degrees. So now I've got it set. It's got a little probe in the water, that external thermostat does. If it senses that the water is hotter than 86 degrees, it cuts all power to this heater. So let's say my heater is stuck on, and that's specifically, what the function that I use them for. If my heater gets stuck on, which happens a lot, unfortunately, in this hobby, that external thermostat is going to go, oh, my temperature probe is sensing that the water is too hot. We're just going to cut all power to that heater. That way that can't happen. Definitely worth it when you've got, $1,000+ invested in a tank. And I don't know the specifics of it, but I do know Dean has lost a couple, if at least one colony of zebra plecos specifically because of heater problems. So that's kind of a foreboding right there. I'm not taking any chances. At least do everything I can anyways to make sure something like that doesn't happen. Ed, I know you've had experiences in the past with the heater sticking on.
Yeah, I always thought it was a myth. And one day I had one get the water like almost to 100, and it killed all my inlers in the tank. And crazily, that's not really a word, crazy, but it happened, was the Goodyeats survived. And the Goodyeats are normally the cooler temperatured fish.
Absolutely.
Weird stuff.
Yeah. And I do want to say, I should have probably prefaced with this, but this discussion in terms of tank temperatures and do you need a heater is geared more towards your standard variety of fish, if you will, the things that are most commonly seen in your local fish stores, your PetSmart, your Petco's, your average run-of-the-mill fish. You definitely have specialty fish, goldfish that you need to keep cooler. And my axolotls, I'm not going to throw a heater in their tank. my zebra plecos that do need to be hotter. So you definitely have some fish that are outside of that status quo, if you will, that standard temperature level. But typically speaking, most of our fish can live in a decent comfort zone, if you will, as long as it's not dramatic changes rapidly. And that's the big thing, is you really don't want temperatures going up, down, up, down, up, down very quickly. Our temperatures, or at least in my house, a lot of times the tanks are slightly warmer in the day and they cool down a little bit at night. Guess what? In nature, typically speaking, it's slightly warmer in the day when the sun's up, and then it cools down a little more at night. That's just a natural cycle. 61.3. So the final thing that I want to talk about here, and this is something I've discussed with you, and we've answered some questions about it, and I really thought it was great that Corey touched on this. And I use Corey a lot, again, not because we're sponsored, I've got the hat, but I love Corey, but because Corey is almost a, how do I put it, pillar of the community. Corey is someone that if we hear, Aquarium Co-op or Corey at Aquarium Co-op said that, most of us in this group here will go, oh, okay, all right. It's a reliable source. He's a reliable source. He's somebody that most of us trust and value his opinion. So that's a lot of times why I will turn and go, even Corey has mentioned this. It's because most of the people here know who Corey at Aquarium Co-op is. They trust what he has to say like I do. And that's the big thing, is I trust what he has to say. I will always research and go off personal experiences, because what works for me may not work for you, and vice versa. But typically speaking, if Corey says it, I tend to believe it to be truth, at least in his experience. So one of the things you look at a lot of times, I wish I could see specifically what this one is you've got on your little thermometers, if you've got like the drop-in thermometers, and I should have grabbed one, your safety zone on there. A lot of times it's like 75 to 80 or 76 to 80. The mindset that I have had for a while, and this was something what I was talking about that Corey alluded to recently in his live stream this past week, and I was very, very glad to hear it from him, is that he also feels like fish can tolerate a much larger safety zone, so long as it's got, and I guess I'm technically adding this part in, but it's insinuating, so long as they've got appropriate time to adjust. So like he specifically mentioned something like 71 to 82 being, the green zone, the safety zone on your thermometer, versus like 75 to 80 or 76 to 80, because they do vary a little bit. And I very much agree with that. I think that temperature swings, and we've talked about this before, as long as they're not rapid and very large, don't tend to be harmful to fish. And in fact, can help them be a hardier fish. So that's my heater spiel, if you will, my heater talk, my thoughts on it. We've only got about 20 minutes left, so I definitely do want to get into the chat. I know we've got some super chats, and then we've got a lot of highlighted stuff that I've not gotten to yet. I appreciate you all bearing with me, if you will. I hope you've enjoyed the talk. I know it's a little different than the standard, if you will, where we spend 5 minutes on a subject and then we look at the chat for 40 minutes or 55 minutes. But I really wanted to spend some time talking about this because, like I said, this other platform we're not even going to discuss. There's been a lot of heated discussion and unfortunately a lot of really nasty back and forth between fish keepers in that fish community. I won't call it a fish fan because it's really not. So I felt it was something worth talking about here because it was making such a splash, if you will, the hot topic, right? So let me grab this. I'm going to get to the super chats first because I know you all have been patiently waiting and hopefully you all have not. Oh, I've lost at least one. Let me pull up this other screen real quick. Ed, do you have anything you would like to add to that while I get this other screen pulled up? Because there are some that I can't see now.
Nope. You mentioned a lot of great things about the heaters. The one thing I was going to add when you were talking about flow is if you have flow going through the heater, not only does it spread the heat throughout the tank evenly, but it also make your heater last longer because otherwise your heater's going to have to work so much harder to heat the whole tank without the flow. It helps it work So you'll have a lot longer life expectancy. Does that make sense?
It does.
It lasts a lot longer when you have flow.
That is a very good point. Come on. Because I know we had Sean Chadwick even before the stream started, did a super sticker, and that's not showing up because so many of you awesome people have done super chats and super stickers while I have been talking. So let me get this pulled up here. We'll say our thank yous, and I will get to the highlighted comments, and we will get into those questions and things of that nature. There it is. We had Sean Chadwick with the $3 super sticker with the thumbs up fist bump pair. Thank you very much for that, Sean. I hope you're still around. I appreciate you doing that, my friend. And we had Texas Fish Room with that dollar pile of brown fertilizer there, throwing that at us. Let's see if I can go back to the other one now. I think I can, yes, so we can get back to the normal stream screen for me. You all don't see it, but I see it. Texas Fish Room, thank you very much for that dollar super sticker, my friend. I hope you're having a great night. I'm going to have to get a method set up to like catch all this stuff behind the monitors because on the new setup, I'm not going to have the same access behind it. Fish Tank Barn. Our buddy Mike, that's who we're doing the Saltwater Saturdays with. The next one's going to be on the 15th. Members, I'm going to shoot you all a quick little video tomorrow and show you the salty thing I have set up now. But you all see that ahead of time. I may have jumped the gun slightly, but we'll talk about that in that video for you all. But thank you, Mike, for the $4 super sticker with the coffee cup pair. Appreciate you, buddy. Fish Tank Barn there.
We have the saltwater in 2 weeks. But this week we also have a big show that's one of our new formats that we've been working on for about a month.
Yep.
And I'm gonna let you guys know it'll be James and I and someone else all in the same room together discussing stuff. And it'll be fish related. And I've been really excited about this for almost 2 months.
How about I'm going to tell the members what it is tomorrow on that members only video, if that's okay with you, Ed.
Oh, that's cool.
I think you all will really enjoy this. The Saturday stream will be for everybody, but I'm going to give the members a heads up. But yeah, Ed came to me with this idea, which is something I had a similar thing kind of thought out and planned. And I'm super excited for it. I know Ed's super excited for it. The other people involved are super excited for it. So it's going to be a blast, and I hope you all enjoy it. You see,
looking way forward to it.
Absolutely. Mike's Aquatics Things with the $10 super sticker. That jumping cheerleader. Thank you for that, Mike. Appreciate you, my friend.
You know,
missed the applause for the Fish Tank Barn.
Mike did a sticker, but Mike just asked something. So let's answer his one question since he just asked really quick. He asked, he was actually asking Pam, but James and I can answer this also. Pam, would a chiller unit work for axolotls? Well, yeah, James and I, we go to a shop every 5-6 months, maybe, I don't know, maybe longer, down in Atlanta that we absolutely love. And they are huge into axolotls. I mean, they have bajillions of axolotls, and they have several chillers keeping their tanks cool.
That's a very common thing with them because they do require cooler temperatures. So yeah, absolutely see that a lot with the axolotls to bring them down. A lot of times what I do personally in my home, the way it's set up, is my axolotls will be on the bottom shelves because even Ed will tell you in his fish room, because that's just the way it works in terms of heat rising. Your bottom shelves are going to be slightly cooler. So a lot of times can do that, and it gets cool enough being on the bottom rows of fish racks. Another thing you can do that I've done before is if you've got them on a stand that allows air to hit the bottom of it, so it's not an enclosed stand, it's not a flat top stand, and you have floor vents, you can actually put that thing over a floor vent and kind of adjust how much AC is pumping on that thing. I've done that before too with like some saltwater tanks that were running too hot to kind of do it yourself chiller, if you will. Let's see. I have a couple more we're going to grab here, and then I'm going to get into the chat because we only got about 15 minutes left. We have got multiple aquariums. How is it going, Diego? With the $2 super chat says, because James and Ned are the coolest guys on YouTube. I think you're in there with us, buddy, but I appreciate you. Thank you for that. And the super chat, my friend. That applause button. I hope you can hear the applause. It's further away from the mic on this new setup. Can you hear the applause there, Ed?
Yes.
Good. All right. And then we got Fantastic Freaks. What's going on, buddy? With the $10 super chat says, finally caught one of the streams again. A friend gave me a free 13.5 Fluval Sea Evo.
Nice.
I've been thinking some sort of clownfish since I don't know any salt puffers that small. Keep being fantastic, guys. Well, fantastic. Thank you, my friend, for that $10 super chat. Congratulations on that free 13.5 Fluval. That is an awesome tank, especially when you get one for free. And I think that would be a great little setup for a nice little clownfish. Yeah, I definitely don't know of any saltwater puffers you'd want to put in that size tank. Maybe something new has come to the hobby in the past decade or so that I'm not aware of. But the ones that I regularly see and am familiar with, you are correct, would be too big for that. But you, buddy, brother, stay fantastic. As always, I do appreciate you. All right, let's dive over here. Let's move the screen that way. Let's go through the highlighted stuff. Looks like I can get pretty much up to the top here. Crunto Halfman said, what's your thoughts on using heaters versus reptile heating mats or tapes to heat up aquarium or breeding tubs, etc.? So I've used the under the tank, if that's what you're talking about, heating mats that you sticky under the reptile tank. I've used those, I think, once on an aquarium just to kind of see how it went because I had one. And I don't feel like it did the job correctly. And I think part of that is because it's not designed to do the job correctly. If you could set it up to where it does the job correctly and safely, I feel like that would be okay. I'm not going to tell you not to do it. Keep in mind, though, that thing is not meant to be exposed to water. So let's say, slim chance, but let's say the bottom of your tank busts. And you're going, well, that mat's pretty well insulated. It's probably waterproof. Well, let's say it busts and some of that glass cuts that mat. I mean, you've got water hitting that electricity. Probably not the best thing. Probably not going to happen, but it's one of those things that I like to try and expect the unexpected when I'm planning so that I don't have the unexpected happen. So just my thoughts. But you could probably get by with doing that. Just be safe and make sure that you're not going to do anything that's going to be overtaxing or isn't going to work in the long run. Hey, R&B Animals Rescue, good to see you. Zen, thank you for posting the links. Pegasus Arena, of course, chat's going to jump on me. Yes, it is. Let's see if I can get back up that far. I cannot. Pegasus Arena, if you're still here, I can't get back up to your question. The farthest I can get up is 9:49 p.m. Eastern time, which is slightly after yours. I'm sorry, but I appreciate you being here, Rena. Scroll on down through here. Crunto Half Moon. I ordered a 50-watt submersible heater from Amazon. I can't return it, etc. I've noticed it has a hairline crack on the tube. Can I still use it or not? So if it's got a crack on that tube, I personally would not use it. And for legal purposes, I'm not going to recommend you use it. I would fuss at Amazon some more. And the reason I say that, be very quick, when I ordered my my Yeti mic, it came in and they had sent me a used one that was missing some parts and a lot of packaging, but also the plug-in for the USB cord was bent all the way over. At first, they didn't want to do anything about it. They said, well, contact the manufacturer. No, fussed with them some more. Fortunately, Mrs. Fever did it. She's nicer than I am. And got it worked out, returned it, and I just went and bought one off the road because I needed it that night for a live stream. But I would try and fuss at them some more. Amazon, see if you can get it done. If not, I just wouldn't risk putting a cracked heater in a box of water. And that's, again, one of the reasons, if you've got a local fish store, I definitely would recommend get your heaters from them, or you've got places like, of course, fishkeeping.com or Aquarium Co-op. I'm sure Corey still sells heaters. Either one of those awesome places. They're not sponsored. Support both of those guys and love what they do for the hobby. All right, rolling on down through here. Somehow, did I get multi-tank addiction? I don't think I did. I seem to miss Chris's every single week. Multi-tank addiction. $1 super sticker with that pile of brown fertilizer on the stream. Thank you, Chris, my brother from another mother. Hope you're doing well. It's funny. I had a dream last night. It was a dream about Aquashella, but I dreamed Chris showed up to the Orlando Aquashella unannounced. And it was really funny. I'm like, why didn't you tell me you've been here for 2 days? But thank you very much for that, Chris. I appreciate you. Too bad I couldn't actually get to see you in person. That was kind of funny. It was like a weird dream. All right, let's roll on down through here. Big Sisterina says, hey, you guys supposed to get highlighted comments and super chats? Yes, we do at the appropriate times. So if you want to throw that in again, that question from earlier, Pegasus, I will gladly get that. Lunatic Fringe, what's going on, buddy? Saying hello to myself and all the other awesome people. Appreciate you being here, buddy. Always good to see you. Let's see. Multiple appearances. Although I'm an Aquatop brand guy, I got an Aquarium Pro about a year ago in my 20-gallon high to test it out and still going strong. Glad to hear it. Very, very glad to hear it's still working for you. Sandy Rimker says, Sandy, it's always good to see you. Appreciate you being here. Thank you for being a member. I worry when my plecos are sucking on it. Yeah, I've noticed that before. But my thought process is if it were too hot for them to be touching, they wouldn't. Just generally speaking, if it's on and it's heating, I feel like they would go, oh, that's hot, and they would get off of it. They wouldn't continue to do so.
Yeah, the heaters are probably like 80 degrees, or, well, it's whatever. I mean, if you feel your skin, I mean, I'm 87 degrees right now. So I don't think they're going to burn themselves on a 87-degree heater.
Well, so not to disagree with you, but I feel like the heaters get a lot hotter than that. I don't know if you've ever actually grabbed a heater when they're active. Because what they do is they get really, really hot, and then they shut off. And then they get really, really hot, and then they shut off. And I mention that because I don't want anybody to reach in and grab a heater thinking it's only going to be 87 degrees and melt their fingertips. You can definitely burn yourself on a heater.
I just tagged my heater, and it was exactly 80. But it might get hot.
That's right. Did you tag your heater, or did you tag the water around the heater?
Well, that's true, too. Let's see what the heat... Well, the water says 79.7, so I don't know. But yeah.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to hurt themselves on that heater because I think they would go, oh, it's really hot there. And the closer they get to it before they make contact, if it's too hot for them, they're going to feel that heat and go, no, I don't want to be here. Let's see. Lunatic Fringe says heaters, when they shut down, usually don't heat, but when they shut down on the heat cycle, it holds. Fish happened to me when I was a kid. Absolutely. Lunatic Fringe. Yeah, that's the worst is when they stick on. When they die and they're just off and they don't heat anymore. That's a problem, but not nearly as often as it death to all fish is when the heater dies and it sticks on and that thermostat doesn't shut it off. So
yeah,
I like those Inkbird thermostats come into play. Yeah, and how just the experience and the smell and the loss of fish is enough to make you not want to have to deal with that again. Paul Sotero, how's it going? Paul says, when I get my trout gideons, they'll be in an unheated tank since they don't do well in warmer water. Absolutely. There you go. That's going to be one of those fish that you look at the fish, you look at what it needs, and you go, oh, I don't even need a heater. Perfect. Michelle, thank you very much. Michelle said, happy to be here to catch this. Reconsidering what heater I'll be picking up tomorrow. Thanks so much. Thank you for being here, Michelle. Now, there's Mike's question about the axolotls. Lunatic Fringe says lots of seasonal temperatures that go along in nature as well in water temperature and chemistry fish from favor. Absolutely. There's a lot that comes into play. And typically, I found in my experience, fish don't need to have a pinpoint precision thing so much as consistency or slower changes. So if it's gradually heating up throughout the day and it's gradually cooling down throughout the day, okay. Do you want to take your fish and instantly change the water temperature 5 degrees? Probably not. Could it handle that? Possibly, probably. I mean, again, we go back to cool spots in water systems. If you've ever been swimming in a lake and it's a really hot day and the surface water is really hot and you swim down 10, 15 feet and it gets super cold, it gets really chilly in that water. Fish go different areas of the water all the time. All right. Thank you, Zen, for posting the links there. Current to half minutes is what average lifespan of heater before needed to change. So I'm going to give you a non-answer there. It depends. Basically, think of your heater as how many times am I going to use it? And it does equate really well to a light bulb, which I've mentioned before, and I know Corey's mentioned before. So I'm going to rip Corey off and compare it to a light bulb, right? If you're going on, off, on, off, you might not get as many days of use or weeks of use out of that light bulb as you would if you, oh, I turned that light on and it's been on for a week and then I turned it off. And then I come back 2 weeks later because I've been out of town. I turn it on and that light stays on for whatever. So you're looking at more in terms of how many cycles can it handle versus the time span. And the cycles come into play in how you have it set. Do you have it set to where, every time you open a door and a draft comes through, it's having a cycle on, cycle off, cycle on, cycle off? Or do you have it set to where maybe it only comes on at night when it cools down, and then as your house or the ambient temperature is a little bit warmer, it's not on throughout the day, and then, okay, it's a little bit cooler at night, so it cycles back on again at night. Maybe you have it as a backup for redundancy, which I do that with a lot of heaters. I have tanks with heaters, and the heaters never come on. They are only there in case of an emergency. They are only there in case the temperature gets too low in the house, because most of my house is within that survivable temperature. So those heaters will probably last years and years and years and years and years because they're not cycling on and off, on and off. So there's your answer without an answer. It depends upon how often your heater is going click on, click off, click on, click off, click on, click off. All right, let me get down through here. Now we've got a couple more super chats. And if I did miss any highlighted questions, I am sorry about that. It did jump on me at one point because we had a long talk. I know I was rather long-winded, but it was something, again, I felt passionate about and I wanted to discuss somewhat in depth with you all. Fishaholic, how's it going? Says, howdy, James and Ed. Hope I'm not late. Where's my stickers? Ed's ST Swordtail Guppy guys, aka Sean.
Well,
I'll get you some stickers. I'm still, long story short, I'm still having some transportation issues, but once I have transportation, I've got a bunch of stickers to go out, and I now have my stickers, Ed stickers, and the Tennessee Fish Mafia stickers in all of those envelopes.
And we can do your swordtails, but I have to meet up with James because I've got to get some of these F1 mollies that Kenny E caught, sent to Kenny.
Yep.
And I'll take some swordtails up to James too, and we'll bag them all up and mail them from Knoxville one day.
That'll work. I kept my heat sealer out for that. That way we could get them taken care of. Cronto Half Moon saying thank you for the advice. Cronto, thank you for being here. Again, we can only speak to our experience and opinions. Neither of us claim to be experts, but we both kept a lot of fish and a lot of tanks, and we hope that we can be helpful. That's why we're here, is to help people. So always glad to be able to do that. Pegasus Sister Ring, there it is, says, still here, and had said to tell Shy and Ed's mom Happy Mother's Day, and that I am fully moved and hope streams are regular again on Tuesday. Congratulations on that. We'll be sure to tell her. And awesome. Glad to hear that you're going to be able to get back to your regular Tuesday streams. Furloughs Aquatics with that $5 super sticker with, we're going to do it with the heater. We'll do it with the heater. The mic drop pair. I caught it with the other hand. Don't worry.
I would not do that. You got more guts than me.
Thank you for that, Eric. Glad to see you. I appreciate you being here. I know you mentioned in John's stream earlier that work has been tough on you, so I appreciate you taking the time to hang out with us. And, of course, I appreciate the super sticker. Never expected, but always very much appreciated. Thanks for also being a member, my friend. And also, congratulations. We've got some more people, some more members that have hit that 1 year mark. Thank you very much for being members, and congratulations on getting that blue 1 year member sticker. I know several people were looking forward to that. I know I am. The channel I'm a member on, I'm always like, oh, I'm so close to getting my next member sticker, member icon. So congratulations and thank you to you all. Speaking of members, Gina Fritz with a $10 super sticker with that adorable little, I'm going to call it a fox, adorable little fox hugging the heart. So excited. Thank you for that, Gina. Always great to see you. Always appreciate you. And I know Ed loves the little fox. I'm going to get yelled at for calling it a fox, but I'm going to call it a fox. Thank you for that.
I think it's a fox, but it looks like a cat, so that's why I like it. I like foxes too.
Yeah, absolutely. BJ Palmer with the $2 super chat says, where did you and Ed get your shrimp? Before I answer that, because I don't want to forget. Thank you very much, BJ.
I have 5 places. Do you want me to go first?
You go first with your 5 places, my friend.
Okay. I get a lot from my local fish store, Aquatic Aesthetics, I bet you I have about 15 of my 60 tanks are aquatic aesthetics. I've got 2 tanks that are LRB. I've got about 10 tanks that are Haley. I've got a lot of Skittle shrimp from Haley. And then I've got my fanciest shrimp. I've got 2 tanks, and they're by far my highest quality shrimp are Swiss Aquatics from Priscilla. I've got her green jades and her blue dreams, and a super high quality shrimp. The one sticker I don't have of shrimp I've got Flips Aquatics, and I've got blue Rileys and orange Rileys from him. Okay, to you, James.
Real quick, I do want to mention Aquatic Aesthetics. Your local fish store guy, Rob, said, Ed, that titanium heater you bought can boil water. So, yeah, you want to be careful with that. Definitely don't put your hand on it.
I think that's the one, though, that he recommended that I get.
Yeah, he was just saying that they get really, really hot. I mean, they've got to get super hot to be able to heat the large quantities of water.
Gotcha.
To that temperature. Let's see. Geek Boy, how's it going, Geek Boy? Glad to see you here. Says, what heating elements do most people typically use with their Inkbird controllers? So I will use a standard heater. I know this is, again, going to be kind of like a non-answer. I have multiple brands. I really do like the Eheim. These guys right here. When it comes to the name brands, they're all about the same, in my opinion. There's not one that really stands out to me as being exceptional beyond belief. So basically, I would say pick a good brand that you trust, that you've got experience with, and go with that. And you can get Inkbirds, or you can get, I keep using the Inkbird brand, you can get thermostats or temperature controllers with multiple ports. So you have, but if you've got 200-watt heaters like I do, you could have both of your 100-watt heaters plugged into that. That way it's going to shut off power to both of them. So if either one has a problem, it's done. But honestly, I don't have a specific brand I'm going to say, oh, you need to get this one. Like I said, I do like Eheims, but I've got several different brands. I've got Aquaholics running. I think the one behind me here is an Eheim in the bottom of this tank. I have it in the bottom, so it's kind of out of sight, so to speak. But I have, pick a heater, any heater, pretty much, except for this one Chinese knockoff Amazon thing that I got that like stuck on, and it was a 300-watt heater that I got because at that point I was still in the mindset of, oh, we'll get that big heater, and then that thing sticks on. You've got 300 watts constantly trying to cook the tank. Thank goodness I was around for that and noticed that it was like glowing red hot nonstop. See, Paul Sotero, I think Paul's dropping some knowledge per usual in here. Says discus and dwarf cichlids like their water 80 degrees plus, so heaters are a must. Inkbirds on all tanks allow for a temperature range and ensure against heat spikes. Absolutely. 100%. Couldn't agree with you more. Great information, and thank you for that, Paul. JFK2, what is going on with the $5 super chat? Thank you for that, my friend. Never expected, but always very much appreciated. We're going to be putting all those towards the Aquashella Orlando Fund. We're going to have some fun down there. Let's see. It says, the stick-on heater is why I only use electronic heaters. Costs more up front, but how much does it cost to replace all your fish? Very, very valid point. Thank you for the super chat. Absolutely. It's one of those things that if you do need a heater, which I think a lot of times we're putting heaters in tanks that we really don't need to put a heater into, just in my experience, in my opinion. But if you do need a heater, don't think of that heater in terms of, let's say, the tank. We buy a tank. We expect to have that tank functional for years and years and years and years and years and years. If you buy a heater, think of it more along the lines of, say, the filter on your central heat and air unit. Not that you need to replace it every month, but it's going to be an ongoing expenditure or something that you would need to change out over the life of that aquarium. Don't just go, okay, I bought a heater. That heater is going to be in that tank for the next, 10 years. If it lasts that long, great. But, electronic heaters, like you mentioned, cost more up front. You're getting more reliability out of it. You're getting a lower likelihood of cooking your fish. Again, the heater is going off and staying off, not as big of a problem. It definitely has an effect if you let it get too cold and you don't catch it. The heater sticking on tends to be what really does the most damage, or at least what most people notice, I guess. So absolutely, very good point there. Totally agree. Sometimes you want to pay a little bit more up front to get that security and get that good product. And again, thank you for the super chat, my friend. All right, rolling up here because I am 6 minutes over into your time, Ed. Well, time has flown tonight. Oh, Ed's going to get mad at me. All right, let's grab these. Cruncho Halfmoon says, what's your thoughts on using titanium or glass or quartz tube or hard plastic heater? Which is better? I feel like titanium, because you don't have the likelihood of busting the glass. And that's just, I'm not saying everybody needs to upgrade toward titanium, but I've seen enough heaters pop that if it's something it's going to be a heartbreak if things go wrong, I'm probably going to go with a titanium heater. If it's just standard, I'm going to put this heater in a Tetra tank. The glass tubes, you see a bunch of glass tubes. I use glass tubes. I'm not going to tell you don't buy those. Typically perfectly fine, and that's what a lot of people use. Titanium's one of those. Saltwater is a good example. Maybe you have some live rock that wasn't properly secured. It leans over, hits that heater. Titanium, it's not going to shatter. I have seen glass heaters get busted because people didn't properly secure live rock, or they had a big fish that moved some live rock around, or like a big eel, bust that heater. So in an instance where you have something that might damage the heater, I would recommend doing the titanium. Other than that, you're probably good with the glass. Get Aquatics, what's going on? Kenny E with the $5 super chat says, don't ship them USPS. I will send you a FedEx label, a FedEx label, Ed. Email me so I have your email. I will have Danny make a label and email it to you. So, Ed, you need to get with Kenny. Kenny, thank you for the super chat. Not required, my brother from another mother. Looking forward to seeing you again. Had so much fun hanging out with you. But thank you very much for that. Always appreciate it. I just appreciate you hanging out with us, my friend. Mandy Boyd, welcome to the team. Thank you for becoming a member of the Fish Room Fever family. I don't want to go too long, but I will say for the new members, there are a lot of videos that I recently went through a couple days ago and made members only that had previously been public. So long-term members, you've probably already seen those videos, or you may not have known they existed. But I took some of the older stuff, moved it to members only if it wasn't mainstreamy, I guess, but it was stuff I knew the members would enjoy. But we've got a lot more new stuff coming as well. But also, members, be on the lookout, because I will be moving some things over to the members only section that I'm pretty sure a lot of you all haven't seen. A lot of videos that only have maybe 30, 40, 50 views on them from years ago, a couple years ago, that you all may not even know exist. Because let's be honest, none of us go back years and years and years on most people's YouTube and look at their videos. So there's some fun stuff in there. Some of you all were around for it. Some of you weren't. But there's some fun stuff in there. Well, welcome to the team. Thank you for becoming a member. I appreciate it. Go ahead, Ed.
If you want to see some really good old stuff, go back and look at the King of DIY Joey stuff from like 6 or 7 years ago. It's amazingly, and it's really good stuff. I actually really like he hits you with a lot of good knowledge.
He does.
But he has like a squeaky voice. It's great.
It's fun. But thank you, Mandy. I do appreciate it. And again, welcome to the Fish Room Fever family. Sorry, Ed, I'm trying. I know we need to get over to your show. The Chubby Guppy with the $5 super sticker with the little pop-up hippo heads. Thank you for that, Chubby Guppy. Hope you're having a wonderful day. And I do really appreciate the super sticker. Poe's Disabled Keeper of Fish says, need shipping info, can't find it on the website. Poe, I will email you. I think I have. I'm almost positive I have your email. I will try and find it. I'm trying to clear out. I deleted like 300 junk emails off the Fish Room Fever Gmail account because I just am getting so much spam nowadays. It's ridiculous. But I will find yours and I will email you. All right. Looks like I have made it to the bottom. Oh, where I get my shrimp. That's right. You got distracted with the heater. Sorry about that. Sorry, BJ. So, yes, I get my shrimp. Got the LRB Blue Dreams. I've gotten shrimp from Haley at Oddball Aquatics. My local fish store, I've gotten some, which is Aquatic Marine. I've gotten some from Aquatic Aesthetics down there as local fish store. Priscilla is Swiss Aquatics. I feel like I'm missing somebody, but
Did you get any from Detroit, Fish Keeper?
I did. I got some from Detroit. I did a video on that. That's been a while ago, long time ago. I got some Blue Dreams from him. But yeah, so
I thought so.
Yeah, Lucas Brett's, like Ed mentioned, everybody kind of knows Lucas and Haley at Oddball and Priscilla at Swiss Aquatics. Highly recommend those. And of course, if you've got an awesome local fish store like Ed's Aquatic Aesthetics or my Aquatic Marine, go do business with those guys. Always recommend that.
Yep.
All right. So I've caught up. Apologize, Ed. We've run 12 minutes into your stream time.
Uh-oh.
Ed's going to hurt me. But I do appreciate all of you all being here tonight. I hope you enjoyed the topic. I really had fun tonight. Sorry for the minor technical difficulties. Again, I'm moving around the fish room in the studio. Pretty soon there will be, of course, this is going to, there we go. There's going to be a 110-gallon tank along that wall. So you'll get to see that soon. You'll also be able to see some of the 125 that's over here that you can't see now. So look forward to that tomorrow. Members, I'm going to get that video for you, showing you that salty surprise, and I will let you all know what Ed and I are doing this Saturday. But everybody be sure, we're going to head on over to Chattanooga Ed's channel. Ed, any final thoughts, words, wrap up?
No, Nico's trying to get on my keyboard right now. Come on, buddy.
Right. Well,
Can't
as
do that.
always, thank you everyone for being here. The lurkers, the listeners, the super chatters, contributors, commentators, the moderators, and the members. I appreciate all of you. Of course, the replay crew, love you guys. So until next time, keep your fish healthy, keep yourselves healthy. Don't be afraid to catch yourself a little